The morning sun cast long shadows over the twisted metal and scorched concrete of Pearl Harbor. Lieutenant Commander Joseph Rashford hunched over his desk, buried beneath towers of intercepted Japanese messages. It was late April 1942, and the cryptanalyst hadn't seen his family in weeks. His uniform was wrinkled, his eyes bloodshot, but his mind was razor-sharp. Something big was coming. He could sense it in the patterns of enemy communications, in the surge of radio traffic flowing through Station Hypo like a river threatening to overflow. Outside his windowless office in the basement of the 14th Naval District building, the Pacific Fleet was a shadow of its former self. 4 battleships lay on the harbor floor. Hundreds of aircraft had been destroyed. Over 2,000 Americans had perished on that infamous December morning. The Japanese had struck with precision and overwhelming force, leaving America's Pacific defenses in ruins. But Rashford knew something the Japanese didn't. America was learning, adapting, and preparing to strike back. "Sir, another intercept from the Japanese 4th Fleet," one of his cryptanalysts announced, placing a freshly decoded message on Rashford's cluttered desk. The young officer's face was pale with exhaustion. "They're requesting additional supplies for something called Operation MI." Rashford's tired eyes suddenly sparked with intensity. For weeks, his team had been tracking fragments of a massive Japanese operation. The enemy was planning something that would dwarf even Pearl Harbor. But where? When? The coded designation AF appeared repeatedly in the intercepts, taunting them with its mystery. If they could crack it, they might change the course of the war. Admiral Chester Nimitz stood at the window of his headquarters, watching salvage crews labor over the sunken battleships. The white-haired Texan had inherited the Pacific Fleet at its lowest point, facing a demoralized force and an unstoppable enemy. Behind him, his intelligence officer, Commander Edwin Layton, cleared his throat. "Admiral, Rashford's team believes they've identified a pattern in Japanese communications. They suspect a major operation in early June." "How certain are they?" Nimitz asked, his voice steady. "Every decision could mean life or death for thousands. Rashford stakes his career on it, sir," Layton replied. "He believes the target is somewhere in the Central Pacific." The team worked tirelessly to pinpoint the location. Nimitz nodded slowly. If Rashford was correct, the enemy might be overreaching. The Japanese had advanced like a tidal wave, capturing island after island. But every empire has its limits. In the Cryptanalysis Center, Rashford's team worked feverishly. The basement room reeked of cigarette smoke and stale coffee. Banks of IBM tabulating machines clattered endlessly, sorting thousands of code groups. Men and women in rumpled uniforms pored over worksheets, seeking patterns in what appeared to be random letters. "I've got something!" Lieutenant Commander Wesley Hamright exclaimed. The Japanese kept referencing water desalination equipment for AF. Rashford's mind raced. A location needing extra water supplies, strategically important enough to justify a massive operation. It had to be Midway, the tiny outpost guarding Hawaii. Lieutenant Commander Jasper Holmes proposed a clever plan. What if Midway reports water shortages? If the Japanese mention it in coded traffic, we'll know AF is Midway. "Get a secure line to Layton," Rashford ordered. "Tell Midway to send an emergency message that their water distillation plant has broken down." Meanwhile, aboard the carrier USS Enterprise, Admiral William Bull Halsey lay in sick bay, ravaged by severe dermatitis. The daring commander, once at the forefront of early carrier raids, was too ill to lead. "Bill, you look terrible," Admiral Raymond Spruance said as he visited. Halsey, bold and instinctive, trusted Spruance to command his carriers. "Take my boys and hit them hard." "They trust you, and so do I," Halsey whispered weakly. On Midway, Marine Colonel Harold Shannon inspected his ragtag air group. Obsolete Brewster Buffalo fighters sat alongside a handful of Wildcats and bombers. "Colonel, are we really expected to stop the Japanese with these?" asked Major Lofton Henderson, aware of the plane's poor reputation. "We'll stop them or die trying," Shannon replied grimly. "Every minute we delay them helps the Navy strike the carriers. That's our job, buy time with everything we've got." Rashford's plan worked. Japanese messages confirmed water shortages at AF. The target was Midway. Nimitz convened his senior commanders. "We know where and when they're coming. At least 4 carriers are heading for Midway in early June. This is our chance to ambush them." Captain Miles Browning noted, Sir, reports suggest 6 Japanese carriers. If they bring them all, we won't, Nimitz interrupted with calm authority. They're splitting their forces. 2 are heading to the Aleutians as a diversion. That leaves 4 for Midway. We'll be ready with 3. The Japanese carriers, Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, and Hiryu, were veterans with elite pilots. The Americans had Enterprise, Hornet, and Yorktown, the last badly damaged at Coral Sea. How long to repair Yorktown? Nimitz asked. 3 months minimum, came the reply. Do it in 72 hours. She sails with the others, Nimitz ordered. Pearl Harbor became a hive of desperate activity as 400 workers labored to prepare Yorktown for battle. Lieutenant Commander John Thatch trained pilots to counter the agile Japanese Zero. Use the Thatch weave, he instructed. Work in pairs. Cover each other. Never dogfight a Zero alone. Among them was Ensign George Gay, a young pilot with barely 300 hours of flight time. Intelligence showed Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto personally commanded the Japanese strike. The enemy was confident, intending to seize Midway and continue their advance. Nimitz remained calm. The bigger their force, the more they have to lose. On May 28th, Task Force 16, Enterprise and Hornet under Spruance, slipped out of Pearl Harbor, with Yorktown following 2 days later. The 3 carriers would rendezvous northeast of Midway at Point Luck, ready to ambush the Japanese. Spruance's quiet, analytical mind planned every move. They expect surprise. Their overconfidence is our advantage, he told his staff. Commander Wade McCluskey prepared pilots for the coming battle. Dive bombers high, torpedo planes low, with limited fighter cover. Speed and surprise were crucial. Lieutenant Dick Best led Bombing Squadron 6. Our target is their carriers, not battleships. Sink the carriers and we win this war, he briefed his men. On Midway, preparations reached a fever pitch. Every aircraft was fueled and armed. Marines dug defensive positions. Radar operators scanned continuously, knowing the first warning of the Japanese approach would come from them. At 0900 on June 3rd, Ensign Jack Reed in a PBY spotted ships 700 miles away. By afternoon, 9 B-17s attacked the convoy with no hits. 4 PBYs attempted a night torpedo attack, claiming 1 hit. Though damage was minor, the Japanese realized the Americans were coming. On June 4th, 3 American carriers with barely 230 aircraft prepared to confront the Japanese Navy. Admiral Frank Jack Fletcher made a key decision. Operate the carriers separately, reducing the risk of all 3 being caught together, a dangerous gamble. At 0430 hours, Japanese aircraft formed for the strike on Midway. 36 torpedo bombers, 36 dive bombers, 36 Zeros. Unaware, they approached American carriers hidden nearby. Radar operators detected them at 0552. Marines and pilots scrambled, taking to the skies in their vulnerable aircraft. Major Henderson led the doomed Buffalo fighters against the Zeros, buying crucial time for Midway's bombers. The attacks disrupted the Japanese formation, forcing evasive maneuvers. Lieutenant Commander John Waldron led Torpedo Squadron 8, unprotected by fighters. His devastators were easy prey. One by one, the planes were destroyed. Ensign George Gay pressed on, released his torpedo at Soryu, and crashed into the sea. Torpedo Squadron 8 was annihilated. All 15 planes lost. Only Gay survived. At 10:22, McCluskey's 33 dive bombers spotted Japanese carriers. Lieutenant Dick Best led his squadron in a precise attack. Bombs struck Akagi and Kaga. Within minutes, 3 Japanese carriers were burning wrecks. Soryu was destroyed soon after. Only Hiryu remained operational and counterattacked, hitting Yorktown. Despite damage control, Yorktown ultimately sank on June 7th. Late on June 4th, Hiryu was found and destroyed. Over 2 days, Americans continued attacks, sinking the heavy cruiser Mikuma. Japan lost 4 fleet carriers, 1 heavy cruiser, 248 aircraft, and 3,587 men. Americans lost 1 carrier, 1 destroyer, 147 aircraft, and 362 men. Japan's offensive capability was shattered. The battle highlighted intelligence, calculated risk, and courage. Rashford's cryptanalysis, Spruance's tactics, and pilots' bravery combined to produce a stunning victory. Torpedo bomber sacrifices disrupted Japanese operations, making the dive bomber attacks possible. Midway became a turning point. The age of the battleship ended. Carrier aviation dominated naval warfare. America had proven that determination, intelligence, and preparation could overcome a numerically superior foe. Rashford's team, though unrecognized initially, had delivered a decisive intelligence victory. Decades later, he was awarded the Navy Distinguished Service Medal. Midway was more than a military victory. It was proof that democracy, courage, and sacrifice could prevail against tyranny.